A woman found something in her late father's shirt that changed many lives. According to the Census Bureau, at least 15% of people under the age of 35 have lost a parent. That is what happened to Oregon native Katie Diaz. For 10 years, she suffered from grief over her father, until she found solace in the most unlikely place, her dad's shirts. When Diaz found dried seeds in her father's shirt pockets, her life changed for the better. Those seeds sprouted into tomatoes, which grew into a therapy, which blossomed into an international sensation. Learn the heartwarming story of Katie Diaz and her foundation, Comfort Seeds. Katie Diaz has a talent for finding happiness amidst suffering. She is a pediatric occupational therapist, the co-founder of Comfort Seeds, writer of a children's book, and is planning a trip to Copenhagen, Denmark. When she spoke to the Nugget newspaper, she said, "My cup is completely full." But Diaz didn't always feel this way. The mother and Oregon resident had a hard life for 10 years before she finally found a way to turn it around. After a long battle with cancer, Diaz's father passed away in 2006. The loss wrecked Diaz. She did not know how to process it, and she found herself clinging to his old belongings. In particular, Diaz kept her father's button-up shirts which he always wore. Diaz and her siblings each inherited some of her father's belongings, and they moved on with their lives. But she had no idea what the shirts would give her 10 years in the future. You won't believe how many strange things Diaz uncovered in her father's shirts. For years, Diaz carried around her father's shirts. She transported them from home to home in her resident state of Oregon. Meanwhile, her daughter grew into a beautiful teenager and Diaz's life moved forward. But still, she could not part with the shirts. Diaz had no idea what to do with them, so she tucked them away in the recesses of her closet. But she couldn't keep them there forever. What would she do with her father's old shirts? In 2016, Diaz honored the 10-year anniversary of her father's passing. She finally pulled out her father's button-up shirts and re-evaluated what to do with them. That's when she got an idea. She would transform the shirts into a quilt to give to her mother and siblings. It was a brilliant plan. The problem? Diaz had no idea how to make a quilt. But that didn't deter her. "I jump into projects when I decide I want to do something, and I figure it out," she said. Not only did Diaz have to learn how to quilt, but she also had to clean the shirts. Most of them had been in storage for a decade, and they were horribly wrinkled. "My dad wasn't very good at washing clothes," Diaz joked. For the first time in years, Diaz spent a lot of time with the shirts by ironing them. It became a meditative practice for her. The hot iron brought up smells of her father that unlocked so many memories. As Diaz ironed the shirts, she found little trinkets hidden within the folds. One pocket held a sticker that Diaz's daughter had given to her grandfather. She also discovered bits of food and clumps of pocket lint. In one shirt, she found a dried plant seed. Like all the other trinkets, she flicked it off and continued working. But the thought of this seed haunted Diaz. She regretted throwing it away, and thought that she could have planted it. Throughout her quilt-making process, Diaz kept a journal of her thoughts and feelings. She wrote about how emotional it was to cut up her father's shirts. "I find that I feel guilty when I don't use every scrap of fabric," she wrote. She compared using the quilts to consuming every part of a hunted animal. "Planning the cuts feels like I'm field dressing a deer, which is ironic. Dad was a hunter." Despite this, she continued to make the quilt. Diaz's biggest regret was throwing away the seed she had found in one of her father's shirts. But as she continued with the quilt, a miracle happened. She found another seed. "I had discarded the first one and regretted not trying to sprout it," Diaz wrote in her journal. "I feel like I won the lottery finding one more seed. I'm soaking it and will try to plant it." That's exactly what she did. Keep reading to learn why Diaz didn't tell her family about the seeds. With some research, Diaz discovered that it was a tomato seed. She soaked it and brought it back to life. A few days after she put it in the soil, a tiny shoot poked through the dirt. Diaz added fertilizer and continued to water it. With some more research on growing tomatoes, Diaz bought a grow light from the hardware store. She kept the tomato plant in her laundry room and tended to it every day. Within 2 months, it grew into an impressive plant. "I've been nurturing it for the past 2 months and it's now 4 feet tall and growing tomatoes," she recorded. And it was in a box stuck to a shirt for 10 years. Eventually, the tomato grew to be 10 feet tall. Diaz and her daughter moved the plant outside and picked fresh tomatoes yearly. The seed that she initially flicked away ended up transforming her life. Growing the tomato plant connected Diaz to her late father. Not only did she find the seeds in his shirt, but he was an avid gardener himself. "My dad was a gardener, and it just had meaning for me to see that," Diaz later said. Meanwhile, her quilt was going well. On Christmas 2016, Diaz presented the gift to her family. Her mother and siblings loved the quilt and cherished the memory of her father. However, they did not learn about the plant. Although Diaz spent a lot of time nurturing her tomato plant, she did not tell her family that she found the seeds in her father's shirts. Her siblings and mother helped her gardening by setting up a grow light. But they did not understand the significance. "They're kind of used to me doing weird stuff, so they didn't ask too many questions," Diaz said. Besides, she had dabbled in gardening with her father before. Now, she was expanding her craft. Coming up, how Diaz ended up teaching children about gardening. Her father's tomato plant inspired Diaz to become a seed saver. She fermented, dried, and stored several different vegetable seeds. Her backyard became a garden with many beautiful crops. Since Diaz had many extra seeds, she decided to share the love. "It's just a neat story that we thought we would share," she said. Plus, gardening gives grieving people a project. It creates life during a time where people feel consumed by death. Diaz began spreading the word about her gardening hobby. She gave seeds to friends and family who had lost loved ones. She would package them with a little note that included her father's story. Diaz transformed a seed from her father's shirt into an aid for grief. Her father's memory lives on in all of the people she has helped through gardening. Her friends cherished the seeds. Since she now felt so fulfilled, Diaz decided to expand this idea further. Diaz's husband is also a therapist. Every summer, he works with children through a therapeutic summer camp. In 2017, Diaz decided to join her husband's camp and share her planting hobby. The kids loved planting seeds. They felt accomplished when they watched their plants grow, and gardening helped them process traumatic experiences. For the first time, Diaz witnessed firsthand how helpful gardening can be. Thanks to her dad, she knew that she had found her life's calling. Do you want to see the book that Diaz is working on? If so, keep reading. Diaz formalized her seed sharing into a business called Comfort Seeds. The organization aims to help people through grief by introducing gardening. According to Diaz, it taps into the archetypal themes of death and regeneration. "It's something that makes you want to put your hands in the soil and figure out a new way to relate to the world," Diaz said. Every year, she visits kids at her husband's camp to share Comfort Seeds and teach them the ins and outs of gardening. Not only does Diaz run Comfort Seeds, but she also has a children's book in the works. She recently reached out to Oregon-based illustrator Manda Severin, who is also a former psychologist. Together, the two are working on a Comfort Seeds book. The book will include a decorated packet of seeds and instructions about how to grow them. Diaz hopes that the book will help children work through grief and other traumatic experiences. As of early 2021, it's still a work in progress. Illustrator Manda Severin truly believes in Comfort Seeds. She is creating illustrations of gardens and forests that line her studio, essentially growing her own comfort seeds. Even during the dangerous Oregon fires, she held out hope for the book. "I've got to believe in this kind of beauty that can transcend great loss," Severin said. She believes in the concepts of life and regeneration that stem from Comfort Seeds, which is why she took on Diaz's project. While Diaz and Severin were working on the children's books, raging wildfires spread through Oregon. In September 2020, Diaz was stuck in her home as smoke filled the air. "I keep looking out the window hoping that the smoke will start to clear," she said. However, both women kept faith that Oregon would recover. The themes of Comfort Seeds say that life will spring from death. Severin said that even though the forest burned down, things will grow again. To see how Comfort Seeds ended up in an international museum, stay tuned. Comfort Seeds gained nationwide attention when it hit social media. Diaz created an Instagram and Facebook page that explained the mission statement of Comfort Seeds. She also shares people's stories about how gardening helped them. Word of Comfort Seeds soon spread to the local newspaper, the Nugget newspaper, and larger journals such as Atlas Obscura. People from all around the world felt inspired by Diaz's mission. It even caught the attention of psychologists from other countries. Diaz's passion project caught the attention of one Henrik Wilkinson, a researcher at the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen, Denmark. Since 2013, the Happiness Institute has researched how people's happiness is affected by social media, careers, COVID-19, and other factors. Many people coming to our office probably think it's a crazy utopia where we have puppies and ice cream, Dr. Wilkinson said. Although they do not provide puppies, they perform research on what makes people happy. In July 2020, the Happiness Research Institute opened the Happiness Museum. Researchers share information about happiness and why many believe that Denmark is one of the happiest countries in the world. When the museum opened, researchers asked for donations of objects that give their owners joy. They received hundreds of submissions. Diaz came across this call for donations and sent some of her comfort seeds. She also told the researchers about how her seeds have helped children through therapy. Wilkinson and his colleagues were incredibly touched by Diaz's seeds. "We thought it was so touching," Wilkinson said. Not only did they make Diaz's seeds one of the 18 displayed donations, but they also offered her a permanent exhibit. The Happiness Museum will host an exhibit dedicated solely to comfort seeds. Diaz plans to visit Copenhagen to set up the exhibit herself. Of course, she has to wait for the lockdown to lift before she travels across the world. With a museum exhibit and a children's book on the way, Comfort Seeds is rapidly expanding. Diaz has helped hundreds of people work through grief and traumatic events, and that's all thanks to her father's shirts. "A lot of fun, magical things have come forth from that little seed stuck to my dad's shirt for 10 years, Diaz said. She now plans a trip to the Happiness Museum and waits for the world to calm down so she can plant comfort seeds. A woman from Massachusetts found something unexpected in a local thrift store. She bought what she thought was a normal ornament for $2, but it turned out to be so much more. Read on to learn her amazing story. This is Priscilla Bailey, a woman who was living in Plymouth, Massachusetts when she found an ornament that caught her eye at a local thrift store. She noticed that the ornament was being sold for the low price of $2 Priscilla thought that was a pretty good deal, so she decided to buy the ornament right there and then. It wasn't until she got it home that she noticed that there was something unusual about it. Priscilla had been shopping at that thrift store before. She liked thrift shopping because she would almost always find unique, beautiful items for a fraction of the price that they would be in a normal retail store. She would often pop into thrift stores in her area whenever she was out and about running errands. Even though Priscilla was a veteran thrift shopper, she had no idea that she had stumbled across something really special. The ornament that Priscilla bought was just sitting on a thrift store shelf alongside other blown glass items that were for sale. Priscilla really likes glass ornaments, and this particular ornament was in her favorite color, blue. When Priscilla picked up the item, she noticed the price tag stuck to the bottom of it that indicated that the ornament would only cost her $2. Priscilla jumped at the chance to own the gorgeous ornament for such a low price. Thrift stores are known to have very good prices, but $2 for a blown glass ornament seems like a very low price even for a thrift store. What was the catch? Priscilla inspected the ornament to see if there was anything wrong with it, but as far as she could tell, it seemed perfectly fine. It also had quite a bit of weight to it, made with care and plenty of glass so it wasn't brittle or extremely fragile. When Priscilla got home with her new ornament, she unwrapped her found treasure and started to examine it more closely. Taking a closer look at the metalwork, Priscilla wondered if the design was angels or something else. There must be a story to this piece. All previously owned items come with such great stories. Priscilla held the item in hands, flipped it around, and admired the blue glass. It really was a beautiful and enchanting piece. While Priscilla was holding the ornament in her hands, she noticed that it was heavier than she expected it to be. She was no ornament expert, but she had held a fair amount of glass ornaments in her life. She could tell that this particular ornament had a bit more weight to it. Priscilla ignored the surprising heaviness of the ornament for the time being and decided to display her find in her kitchen. It wasn't until later, when her daughter came over, that she realized she had overlooked an important detail. This is a photo of Priscilla's daughter, Kat. Kat also loved blown glass ornaments, so she was excited when her mother showed her the ornament she had found at the thrift store. Kat loved blown glass so much that she dreamed of opening her own blown glass store in Massachusetts. Priscilla didn't mention the strange weight of the ornament to Kat, but even so, Kat noticed that there was something strange about this particular glass ornament. Kat thought that the heart-shaped ornament was absolutely beautiful. She gently took the ornament off the wall to take a closer look. She too noticed that it was heavier than she expected. She mentioned this observation to her mother, who admitted that she also thought that the ornament was abnormally heavy. Kat had an idea. She went to find a flashlight so that she could see if there was anything inside the ornament. That light would soon reveal something incredible. Priscilla thought that using a flashlight to look inside of the ornament was an excellent idea. When they first shone the flashlight through the ornament, they didn't see anything unusual, but then, they saw that there was something inside the ornament that was moving around. Using the light, Priscilla and Kat discovered that there were actually 2 secret compartments inside the ornament. Something was moving in the smaller compartment. Priscilla desperately wanted to know what was inside. Priscilla and Kat decided that they needed an expert to help them get to the bottom of this mystery. Priscilla decided to call the local authorities and let them inspect her item. Maybe whatever was inside was dangerous or illegal. Priscilla also called the Boston Globe and invited news reporters over to her house to see what they thought about the mysterious $2 thrift store ornament. Even though Priscilla didn't know what was inside the ornament yet, she had a feeling it was going to be interesting. The news reporters showed up at Priscilla's house first, and she told them everything that she knew about it. Sitting around her kitchen table, Priscilla told the reporters, "Right now, it's hanging up there when I do my dishes. I sometimes stare at it." Not knowing what to expect, the reporters were just as intrigued as Priscilla when she handed over the ornament for them to inspect themselves. It was immediately clear that this held much more meaning than a simple Christmas tree ornament. Then, Priscilla and Kat showed the reporters how they noticed that there were 2 hidden compartments inside of the glass ornament. As they had before, Priscilla held up the ornament while Kat shined a light on it, revealing the contents inside. Kat explained to the reporters what she thought it was. "I said to her, 'It looks like it's ashes, Mom.' But even if it were, the mystery remains as to whose they were, and how they ended up at a thrift store." There was no doubt that the ornament was beautiful. And if they contained ashes inside, it would make sense why it was so carefully made with stunning detail. But the 2 women had also been shaking the ornament, not knowing it was ashes inside.